A few cases of serial killing in the UK have horrified the British public as deeply as the sadistic couple who became known as the Moors murderers. For 2 years, they hunted down innocent youngsters, torturing and killing them for pleasure, and burying their bodies on the vast sketch of moorlands that lie between counties of Lancaster and Yorkshire. The dominant member of the lethal partnership was Ian Brady. Born in 1938, his partner, Myra Hindley, 4 years his junior, they both met in 1961 as they were working for a Manchester chemical company and soon become lovers. Brady, with a minor record of assault and theft, had ambitions to become a bank robber, but on July 12, 1963, he confessed to Myra Hindley that he has decided to commit the perfect murder. In his mind, the plan was simple. Myra Hindley would cruise the streets of Manchester in a borrowed van, while Ian Brady followed not far behind on his motorcycle. When they saw a possible victim, he would flash his headlights, and Myra would stop and lure the prey into the van. Soon, Brady spotted a girl whom he recognized, 16-year-old Pauline Reed. Myra Hindley knew the girl's mother, and Pauline was picked up on the pretext that Myra Hindley had lost an expensive glove and would give her some pop music in return if she would help her find it. Pauline was due to be at a Saturday night dance, but because she was kind-hearted, she agreed to help Myra Hindley. As Myra drove to the spot where she and Ian Brady arranged at the edge Saddleworth Moor, northwest of Manchester. As Brady arrived behind the van on his motorcycle, Myra introduced him as her boyfriend, and he led Pauline off onto the moors to start the search. From what follows, we have relied upon Myra Hindley's confession some 24 years later, as Ian Brady returned to the van and told her to come with him. As she approached Pauline, laying down on the ground, she noticed her skirt was pulled up and her underwear astray. As she's laying there, bleeding to death from the slash wound on her throat. Producing a spade that he'd left earlier at the site, Ian Brady buried the girl in a makeshift grave. Back home, the couple shared tasks to destroy the evidence. Brady burnt his blood-stained clothing that he wore that day, cleaned the spade, and disposed of the bloody knife that he used to kill the young 16-year-old girl. Pauline Reed's throat was cut so severely they said that her spinal cord was severed. It was not until November that Brady had the urge to kill again. On November the 23rd, the pair again hired a van and drove around for several hours before selecting the next victim. And that victim was 12-year-old John Kilbride, who was buying biscuits from a store. Brady invited the boy into the van, and tragically, the young lad accepted. Once again, they drove out to the moors to look for a lost glove. According to Myra Hindley, Brady sent her away while he tried first to stab the youngster, and then strangled him to death with a piece of string. After sexually assaulting the dead child, Ian then buried the body of the young child. A major police investigation was mounted after John Kilbride's disappearance. Even though there was a massive search for the young 12-year-old, the case was called off just a mile from where John's shallow grave was. On June the 16th, 1964, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley had a new vehicle. It was a mini pickup that they owned. The couple once again set out on the hunt and soon spotted another 12-year-old who would go by the name Keith Bennett. The poor lad rapidly agreed to go with the pair to help them shift a few heavy boxes. As before, they drove out to the same spot in the moors where Brady strangled Keith and then sexually assaulted his body and buried him in a deep hole. He also took photographs, which he then developed back at his home to show his lover, Myra. Many years later, she told detectives the boy was lying on his back. There was blood on him, so I couldn't look closely. I couldn't tell whether the young lad was still alive or dead when the picture was taken. Over 6 months has passed. It is now December the 24th, Christmas Eve, and Ian Brady's bloodthirst, his lust for killing, had returned. Myra Hindley, wearing a black fitted wig to disguise her blonde bleached hair, went with Ian Brady to a Christmas fair where they found a 10-year-old, Leslie Ann Downey, who had become separated from her brothers. The couple were carrying boxes that looked like Christmas presents. Myra Hindley dropped a parcel on the ground and asked the young girl if she could help her pick it up and carry it back to the car. Years later, Myra Hindley said, "She went with us like a lamb to a slaughter." What follows would eventually bring hardened police officers and detectives to have tears in their eyes. In the couple's bedroom, Brady set up a camera, as well as lights and a tape recorder, and then force little Leslie, age 10, to strip down naked and pose for his pornographic images and pictures that he was about to take. While the tape was recording, her terrifying cries could be heard before raping and strangling her. During the course of this horrific event, it had snowed extremely heavily, and after trying to reach the moors with Leslie's tiny body in the vehicle, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley had no other options than go back to their homes, and returned the next day, where they buried the child's body in the same locations as they did with the other victims. Myra Hindley had a younger sister, 19 years old, Maureen, who had married 17-year-old David Smith. The two couples spent much time together, and David, a juvenile delinquent, greatly admired Ian Brady. The older man possessed guns and took him to the moors to practice with them. He bragged about the robberies that he was going to commit, but then Brady decided he would gain complete power over David by making him an accomplice to murder. On October the 5th, 1965, Myra Hindley brought David Smith back to her home, where David waited for Ian Brady to pick up a young lad called Edward Evans. As David Smith was sitting in the kitchen having a glass of wine, Smith suddenly heard a terrifying scream coming from the living room, and Hindley shouted, "Dave, help him." As David Smith quickly rushed into the room, he found Brady raining down heavy blows with a hand axe to Evans' head. It was a horrifying scene. The lad was screaming to death and trying to get away frantically from Ian, as he kept on hitting him over and over again, over the head, neck, and shoulders. It was a frightening scene that David Smith, a young teenage boy, would never forget. As Edward Evans was viciously murdered right in front of him, as the young teenage boy, stomach curled with sickness of what he just witnessed. There was blood absolute everywhere, all over the walls, the fireplace, everywhere. Finally, Ian Brady strangled young Evans to death with an electric cable. As the young boy Evans' final breath left his body as he passed away, Ian Brady got up and said, "Well, it's done. It's the messiest one yet." He told David Smith to return the next day to help him dispose of the body, but the horrified teenager rushed home and woke up his wife, Maureen. In the early dawns of light, they left their home in terror that Ian Brady might have followed them. So the young teenagers quickly telephoned the police, who arrived a few minutes later to pick them up. After David Smith finally gasped out the horrifying night experience he just witnessed, police officers immediately went to Ian Brady's house, and locked up in the upstairs bedroom was the slaughtered body of Edward Evans. Close by was the axe in a brown paper bag, as well as a box containing 2 fully loaded handguns. That night, Ian Brady was arrested and charged with the murder of Edward Evans. Myra Hindley was taken in for questioning, but it took at least 5 days before she was also charged. The house was searched from top to bottom. Detectives found a large collection of photographs, some of them of Myra Hindley and her pet posing. Others were amateur pornographic images featuring the couple and a few pictures of the Morlands. Police officers and detectives also discovered a notebook with a list of names. One of the names, John Kilbride. They also discovered a strange tape recording of Myra Hindley reading out loud reports about the disappearance of young Leslie Ann Downing to a young girl. Within a day or two, that girl was identified. She was the daughter of the neighbour. She had told the police that Ian Brady and Myra Hindley had taken her for a car ride to Saddleworth Moor on Christmas Eve 1964, 2 days before the disappearance of Leslie Ann. She took them to the spot, which was the exact same area where David Smith said he was practicing shooting with Ian Brady. A wide search took part with 150 police officers and dogs, and on October the 16th, the body of Leslie Ann Downing, the young girl, was discovered naked. Her clothes were buried at her feet. But would it be possible to prove that Ian Brady and Myra Hindley was responsible for the young girl's death? 2 days later, an officer was flicking through a book belonging to Myra Hindley. He found 2 receipts hidden in the book. There were 4 suitcases that were lodged at Manchester Central Station, and when the cases were recovered, it revealed incriminating evidence against the 2. There were wigs, masks, spare hand grenade ammunition, and a book about torture. There were also more photographs of Myra in other obscene poses. There were also more pictures of Myra Hindley at the moors. However, the most horrific evidence found in these cases was photographs of young Leslie Ann Downing. In one of the pictures, the poor girl was naked and gagged with a handkerchief in her mouth, suffering unspeakable sexual torture, as well as a handful of tape recordings. One of the tapes ran for 13 minutes, the recording of a pitiful cry of a 10-year-old as she pleaded for her life. Ian Brady had recorded the last minutes, the last moments of the 10-year-old's life. All of the tape recordings that Ian Brady made was analysed by horrified police technicians. In the recording of the torture of Leslie Ann Downing, police could hear a radio station playing in the background. The song "The Little Drummer Boy" was playing. The broadcast was traced to a Pacific radio station, and searched for the playlist quickly revealed this was a Christmas broadcast, which went out on the evening of December the 26th, 1964. The voices of Myra Hindley and Ian Brady could also be heard in the recording, as well as the cries of the 10-year-old child pleading for her life, crying for her mum. It is now October the 21st. Police searchers found the grave of John Kilbride, 400 yards away from Leslie Ann's shallow grave. Police realised one of the pictures of Myra Hindley's collection was of Myra Hindley sitting on the grave of the young boy with her dogs. Both Myra Hindley and Ian Brady were both charged with 3 murders of Edward Evans, John Kilbride, and Leslie Ann Downing. The only emotion shown by Myra Hindley was when she was told one of her dogs had died. The trial of Ian Brady and Myra Hindley opened on April the 19th, 1966. The much publicised case had aroused violent hatred among the general public. In prison, the couple had been held under permanent guard to protect them from other prison inmates. Their food was tested for poison, and in the courtroom docks they had bulletproof glass surrounding them. Both of them refused to swear in the Bible, protesting that they were both atheists, and both pleaded
not guilty. As the couple continued to deny all these murders, they tried to put the blame on David Smith, who appeared as a witness in the courtroom. The jury took only 4 hours to come back with a verdict, and that verdict was guilty. Ian Brady was found guilty of all 3 murders. Myra Hindley for the killing of Leslie Ann Downing and Edward Evans, and for harbouring Ian Brady after the murder of John Kilbride. Both were committed to imprisonment for life, and Ian Brady later was transferred to Broadmoor Maximum Security Mental Hospital. The case continued to evoke wide interest. It was not until 1985 that the investigating journalists obtained a series of interviews with Brady in Broadmoor, in which the killer admitted his crimes for the first time and confessed to the murders of Pauline Reedy and Keith Bennett. On learning all of this, the head of Manchester CID Detective Chief Superintendent Peter Topping wondered if it was possible to reopen the case. He visited Myra Hindley in prison and showed her many of the photographs of the Morlands taken by Brady. She said that after 20 years she could not recognize any of the scenes, but offered to go with the police at Saddleworth Moor. A new search of the moors began on November 20th, 1986. Then, on December 16th, Toppings received permission to take Myra Hindley to the sites, heavily disguised and escorted by armed police. As she was walking with detectives through the moors, she failed to identify any of the landmarks due to the heavy snow and was returned to prison that day. Toppings continued to talk to Myra Hindley, and at last, in February 1987, after 2 whole decades, she had announced that she would tell her story and recorded 17 hours of terrible truth. Again, she was taken out to the moors, and again the search was unsuccessful. However, the police now called upon the advice of experts, who carefully explained how disturbed soil could be spotted from changes in pattern of vegetation, that the RAF photographed the whole area from the air so they could compare it to Brady's photographs, and Toppings went to talk with Brady on July the 1st, 1978, and the search team spotted telltale difference in the patches of vegetation, and after very carefully analysing the site, exposed the body of Pauline Reedy. When the find was announced, Brady contacted the chief superintendent. He was able to show them where Keith Bennett's grave was. For the whole of July 3rd, Brady trampled the moors, accompanied with police escort, but failed to find the spot. He was taken back to the moors on December the 8th, but without success. The search for Keith's body was finally called off, and Keith would never be discovered. Ian Brady died at Ashworth Hospital on the 15th of May 2017. Even though Myra Hindley was still in prison, she had gained a university degree, but in 1994 she was still described herself as wicked and evil, and having behaved monstrously. In 1998, the appeal court judges upheld the decision by the former UK Home Secretary Jack Straw, said that Myra Hindley should rot in prison until the day she dies. Myra Hindley lost her battle for parole in 2000. She took her case to the House of Lords, but again failed when 5 law lords anonymously ruled that the former Home Secretary decision had been lawful and justified. Myra Hindley died in hospital in November 2002 following a chest infection. She was 60 years old.
It runs for some 16 minutes, and listening to it is quite horrendous. You've got this child who's not wanting to have her clothes taken off. You've got her pleading all the time for a mother.
He said to me, We've got some tapes. I said tapes, what do you mean tapes? I said tapes of a voice. I thought, no, please God, no. Don't let it be Leslie. And they put it on, and it was Leslie, and she's crying for me. Let me go to Mummy and Daddy. And I won't say anything, I don't know you. And I won't say anything, just let me go to Mummy and Daddy. And it was Leslie screaming on the tape.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It was a very hard video for me to make, not just the editing, but to watch all the mothers have their interview. I would leave a link, or I will try and leave a link in the description of the documentary of what you just watched. But yeah, this was a very long video. I just want to say thank you very much, like I always do, if you've made it this far. I have read from the book Serial Killers, like I did with the last video about the murders in New York, The Son of Sam. I know I've been away for a very long time, but like I said, I've been working a lot and it takes time to edit and get all the stuff together, and I gotta find time to record. But I'm here now, and I've got another video in the making that I'm halfway through. So hopefully I can upload that soon. But apart from that, I think this video is done. I just want to say thank you very much. And if you just found the channel, thank you for stumbling along. I hope you subscribe. But like I said before, it's entirely up to you. If you have subscribed, thank you. And I will see you again next time.